3 months had passed since the collective voted to work with the Ascended. The galaxy had transformed into a massive construction site. On thousands of worlds, species that had barely cooperated before now worked side by side, building the anchors that might save them all. Minji stood on the orbital platform above Thalos Prime, watching cargo ships carry refined metals and exotic materials into space. Below, the planet glowed with the lights of factories running day and night. The collective had mobilized every resource, every worker, every ship, but it wasn't enough. "We've completed 47 anchors," Jiwan reported, joining her at the observation window. The commander looked exhausted. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. "We need 200. At our current pace, we'll have maybe 70 by the time the silence reaches our core worlds." "How many species have contributed volunteers for Ascension?" Minji asked. 17. "About 50,000 individuals total across all species." Jiwan pulled up casualty reports on her datapad. 32,000 survived the transformation. The others, she didn't need to finish. Minji had watched too many volunteers enter the transformation chambers and never wake up. Each death felt personal now. These beings believed in saving the galaxy enough to risk everything. Hyun's voice came through their communicators. He was stationed on one of the anchor construction sites at the edge of collective space. "Dr. Kang, Commander Park, you need to see this." The holographic display activated, showing Hyun's transformed face. Behind him, a completed anchor floated in space, a massive crystalline structure that hummed with energy. But that wasn't what made Minji's breath catch. Beyond the anchor, space itself looked wrong. Stars flickered and died. The darkness spread like ink in water. "The silence reached this sector 6 hours ago," Hyun explained. "We activated the anchor just in time. Watch." As they watched, the silence pressed against an invisible barrier created by the anchor. Where it touched, reality stabilized. Stars that had begun to flicker brightened again. The darkness retreated, unable to penetrate the anchor's protective field. "It works," Jiwan whispered. "It actually works. For now," Hyun said. "But the silence is adapting. It's probing the barrier, looking for weaknesses. We need more anchors. The gaps between them are too large." On the research station where transformation chambers had been set up, engineer Jisoo Bai examined the architect technology with growing frustration. She was brilliant with machines, but this was beyond anything she had encountered. The anchors required materials that barely existed in the known galaxy, and assembly techniques that seemed to defy physics. "How did the architects do this?" she muttered, running her hands through her hair. "Some of these components should collapse into black holes the moment we create them." "But they don't. Why?" Young Min-Oh appeared beside her. The Ascended human had become her assistant, helping translate architect technical documents. "Because they exist in multiple dimensions at once. Your three-dimensional thinking can't grasp how they work. Then explain it in a way I can understand." Youngmin hesitated. "I could show you, share my knowledge directly, but it would be intense. Overwhelming." Jisoo looked at the half-finished anchor components on her workbench, then at the star charts showing the silence's advance. "Do it." When Youngmin touched her hand, Jisoo's mind exploded with understanding. She saw mathematical principles that shouldn't exist, spatial dimensions folding into themselves, matter and energy as different expressions of the same quantum probability. Her organic brain couldn't hold it all, but she grasped enough. When he released her, Jisoo collapsed into her chair, gasping. "That was... I understand now. At least part of it." She looked up at him with new respect and fear. "Is that what you experience all the time?" "We've adapted to it," Youngmin said gently. "Our transformed brains can process what yours cannot." "But you did well. Better than most." Jisoo turned back to her workbench with renewed determination. She still couldn't think in multiple dimensions, but now she knew what she was looking for. "Get me a team. We're going to make this work." Across the galaxy, Captain Yoonji Song led a desperate defense. Her fleet engaged the silence at the frontier, buying time for evacuations. But conventional weapons were useless. Energy beams dissolved before reaching the phenomenon. Missiles simply stopped existing. Nuclear explosions vanished without effect. "All ships fall back," she ordered. "There's nothing we can do here." But even retreat was dangerous. Ships that got too close to the silence's edge simply disappeared. No explosions, no debris. Just gone. "Captain, we have transports full of civilians behind us," her tactical officer reported. "If we withdraw, the silence will catch them." Yoonji stared at the advancing darkness. Her military training screamed at her to save her fleet. But her conscience wouldn't let her abandon thousands of innocent beings. "Hold position," she commanded. "We stay until every civilian is clear." 3 ships were lost before the last transport jumped to safety. Yunji watched good people vanish into nothing. When her own ship finally retreated, she sat in her command chair with tears in her eyes. In the council chambers, Ambassador Taewon addressed the collective once more. "We need to face reality. Even with the anchors, we cannot cover the entire galaxy. We must choose which sectors to protect and which to abandon." The chamber exploded in angry protests. No one wanted to condemn their home worlds to destruction. Hanuel Shin's hologram appeared. "There may be another way, but it will require a sacrifice greater than anything I've asked before." "What do you mean?" Taewon asked. "The architect records speak of something called a resonance net. Instead of individual anchors scattered across space, we create a web of quantum-entangled nodes. It would cover far more territory with fewer physical structures." "That sounds ideal," Taewon said. "What's the catch?" "The nodes aren't machines. They're living beings, ascended individuals who permanently link together into a collective consciousness. They would become the network itself, their bodies serving as anchor points in reality." Silence fell across the chamber. "You're asking people to give up their individuality forever?" Juno Kim demanded. "Not forever. They could disconnect if they chose. But while connected, they would share one massive consciousness. All their thoughts, memories, and experiences merged." Hanuel's expression was somber. "I won't lie to you. It would change them fundamentally. But it's the only way to save everyone." Ji-won stood up from her seat. "How many would you need?" 50,000 ascended minimum. We only have 32,000. Then we need more volunteers, both for initial ascension and for joining the network." That night, Minji found Hyun in the observation lounge of his construction site. He stood at the window watching stars die in the distance. "You're thinking about volunteering for the network," she said. It wasn't a question. "How did you know?" "Because I know you. You've always been the first to jump into danger if it meant helping others." Hyun turned to face her. His glowing eyes were sad but determined. "Dr. Kang, Minji, I have to do this. I'm already ascended. The transition to the network will be easier for me than for someone who hasn't transformed yet. But you'll lose yourself. You'll become part of something else. I'll become part of something greater. And maybe that's what humanity was always meant to do. Not conquer the galaxy alone, but join with others to protect it." He smiled. "Besides, according to Captain Hanuel, we'll still have our individual thoughts within the network. It's not death. It's evolution." Minji wanted to argue, to beg him not to do this, but she saw the certainty in his face. "Then I want to be there when you make the connection." "I'd like that." Across the collective, thousands of ascended made the same choice. Some were humans who had survived on the eternal dawn. Others were volunteers from dozens of species who had undergone transformation. All of them understood what they were giving up. And all of them chose to do it anyway. The resonance net was their last hope, and they would pay any price to see it succeed. The final preparations took 2 weeks. 50,000 ascended beings from across the galaxy gathered at designated coordinates. Each would become a living node in the resonance net, their bodies anchoring reality itself against the silence's approach. Minji stood in the observation center on Thalos Prime, watching holographic displays showing all 50,000 volunteers in their positions. Hyun was among them, stationed near the galactic rim where the silence pressed hardest. She had said goodbye to him 3 days ago. It still hurt. "All nodes report ready," Young Minnow announced. He had chosen to remain free, serving as a coordinator between the network and the rest of the collective. Beginning connection sequence in 60 seconds. Ambassador Taewon stood beside Minji, his aged hands gripping the railing. "I've seen many things in my years of service. But this is either our salvation or our end. It will work," Hanuel Shin said. Her hologram appeared beside them. "It must work." Captain Yunji's fleet formed a protective perimeter around the network nodes. If anything went wrong during the connection, they would evacuate as many as possible. But everyone knew that once the process started, there would be no turning back. 10 seconds, Youngmin counted down.
9, 8, 7. Minji found herself holding her breath. 3, 2, 1. Initiating connection. At first, nothing seemed to happen.
The 50,000 ascended remained in their positions, floating in space or standing in designated chambers. Then slowly they began to glow, not with the soft blue light that marked normal ascended, but with brilliant white luminescence that grew brighter and brighter. Minji watched Hyun's vital signs on her display. His neural activity spiked impossibly high, then stabilized at levels that should have killed a normal being. His body remained intact, but something fundamental had changed. He was no longer an individual. He was part of something vast. Across the galaxy, lines of light connected each node to its neighbors. The resonance net took form, a web of quantum-entangled consciousness spanning millions of light years. Where the light touched space, reality solidified. The silence pressed against it and could not pass. "It's working," Jiwon breathed. "It's actually working." But the cost was evident. Youngmin monitored the network's collective consciousness. What he sensed made him weep. They're still there. All of them. But they're together now. One mind made of 50,000 voices. "Can you communicate with them?" Taewon asked. Youngmin reached out with his ascended senses. After a moment, he nodded. They say it's beautiful. They can feel every star, every planet, every living being within the network's reach. They're holding back the silence, stabilizing reality through pure will. Minji wiped tears from her eyes. "Hyun, can you tell him?" "He knows," Youngmin said gently. "They all know. They can sense our thoughts when we focus on them. He wants you to know he's happy." This is what he was meant to do. The silence pressed harder against the resonance net. Along the frontier, the boundary between light and darkness blazed with energy. Reality itself was at war. Entropy versus order. Death versus life. For 3 days, the battle raged. The network held firm, but the strain showed. Several nodes began to falter, their bodies unable to sustain the immense power flowing through them. "We're losing stability in Sector 12, a technician reported. 2 nodes have disconnected. The gaps in the network are growing." Hanuel's hologram flickered with concentration. She was linked to the network, lending her ancient knowledge and strength. "The silence is adapting faster than we predicted. It's learning to target individual nodes, trying to break the network one piece at a time. Can we reinforce them?" Jiwon demanded. "We would need more ascended volunteers. But the transformation takes 3 days minimum. We don't have that time." In her medical laboratory, Dr. Sora Han had been analyzing the network's biology. Suddenly she looked up with wide eyes. "Wait, what if we don't need new volunteers? What if we can strengthen the existing nodes?" "How?" Minji asked. "The network is quantum entangled, right? Information travels instantly between nodes. If we could boost the signal, increase the entanglement, we might be able to distribute the strain more evenly." Jisoo Bai, working in her engineering station, caught the idea immediately. "We could use the completed anchors as signal boosters. They're already designed to stabilize reality. If we recalibrate them to amplify the network's quantum signature—" "Do it," Taewon ordered. "Whatever resources you need." Teams worked frantically across the galaxy. The 47 completed anchors were modified in hours, a task that should have taken weeks. Ascended engineers moved at impossible speeds, their enhanced minds solving problems before normal beings could even understand them. When the modifications were complete, the anchors activated in their new configuration. The effect was immediate. The resonance net blazed brighter, its lines of light thickening into brilliant cords of energy. The strain on individual nodes decreased as the network distributed its power more efficiently. The silence recoiled. For the first time since it had appeared, the entropy wave retreated. Not far, just a few light years, but it was enough. The collective had proven they could fight back. "We're holding," Youngman reported, his voice filled with wonder. "The network says the silence is still there, still hungry. But we're matching its strength. We can maintain this indefinitely." Cheers erupted in the command center. People from dozens of species embraced, their differences forgotten in the joy of survival. They had faced the end of everything and refused to surrender, but Minji felt no joy. She looked at the display showing Hyun's position. His body still glowed with the network's light. He was alive in a sense. But the person she had known, the eager young specialist who loved ancient human technology, was gone forever, merged into something greater. Later, in the quiet of her quarters, Minji found a message waiting for her. It had come through the network, encoded in quantum fluctuations that only specialized equipment could detect. "Dr. Kang," the message read in Hyun's voice. I know you're sad. I know you think I'm gone. But I'm more alive than ever. I can see things I never imagined. The beauty of the cosmos, the interconnection of all life, the mathematics that underlies reality itself. I'm not alone in here. I'm with 50,000 friends, and we're protecting everything we love. Don't mourn me. Celebrate what I've become, and keep studying the past because now I'm helping build the future. Thank you for everything. Minji wept as she read it, but they were tears of grief and pride mixed together. 100 years passed. Dr. Minji Kang stood before a new generation of students in the rebuilt Grand Archive. Her hair had gone white and her movements were slow with age, but her mind remained sharp, and her passion for history had never dimmed. Today I want to tell you about humanity, she began, a species that went extinct 20,000 years ago, yet saved the galaxy in its return. The students listened as she explained about the eternal dawn, the crucible, and the ascension. She showed them images of the resonance net, still active after a century, still holding back the silence at the galaxy's edge. The question we must ask ourselves, Minji continued, is what does it mean to be human, or to be any species? Is it about our bodies, our individual minds, or is it about our values, our choices, our willingness to sacrifice for others? She paused at a display showing Captain Hanuel Shin, who still maintained her connection to the network while serving as an advisor to the collective. The ancient human looked exactly as she had a century ago, eternal and unchanging. Humanity discovered that survival sometimes requires transformation. They evolved not just biologically but philosophically. They learned that preserving life was more important than preserving form. As her lecture ended, Minji made an announcement that surprised many of her students. This is my final lecture. I've accepted an offer to undergo the ascension process. Soon I'll join the resonance net. A student raised her hand, concerned. Professor Y, you've lived a full life. Why risk transformation now? Minji smiled. Because someone I cared about once told me it was beautiful, and because after studying the past for so long, I want to help protect the future. The network will need knowledge of history, of where we came from. I can provide that. 3 days later, Minji entered the transformation chamber. Commander Jiwon Park, now retired but still sharp at 90 years old, stood watching. Are you sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything. The process was easier now than it had been a century ago. The Ascended had refined the transformation, making it safer and less painful. When Minji emerged, she felt the change immediately. Her old body was restored to youth, but more than that, she felt the presence of others in her mind. And there, among 50,000 voices, she found Hyun. Welcome, the network said with one voice. Welcome home. Minji, no longer just Minji, but part of something infinite, looked out at the galaxy through 50,000 pairs of eyes. She saw Earth restored by architect technology, with new humans learning their history. She saw the collective growing stronger, species working together as never before. She saw the silence still lurking at the edge, held back by their eternal vigilance. And she saw hope, not for individual survival but for something greater, a civilization that had learned to transcend its differences. A galaxy that had chosen to live. The Galactic Collective Council chamber on Thalos Prime had never been so packed. Representatives from all 47 member species crowded into the seats, their translators creating a buzz of overlapping conversations. Fear and anger filled the air in equal measure. Ambassador Taewon Yu stood at the central podium, his aged face calm despite the chaos around him. He had served the collective for 30 years and had seen many crises. But nothing like this. Order, he called out, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. We will have order. Slowly, the noise died down. All eyes turned to the massive holographic display where the Eternal Dawn floated in its quarantine orbit around a remote research station. Security Chief Junho Kim had insisted on the quarantine, and for once, almost everyone agreed with him. We have heard testimony from Dr. Kang and Commander Park, Taewon continued. We have reviewed the data from the Ascended. Now we must decide how to proceed. A crystalline delegate rose, facets flashing with agitation. These creatures claim to be human, but they are abominations. They should be destroyed before they contaminate our space with their mutations. They're offering to help us, another delegate countered. They have technology that could save billions of lives. Or destroy us all, Junho Kim interjected from his security station. We know nothing about this silence they speak of. For all we know, they brought it with them. This could all be an invasion disguised as a rescue. In a private medical lab on the research station, Dr. Sorahan examined tissue samples from one of the ascended volunteers. What she saw fascinated and terrified her. The cells were unlike anything in the known galaxy. They existed in multiple states at once, organic and mechanical, solid and energy. Under the microscope, they seemed to shimmer between different forms. "This is impossible," she muttered. "These cells are quantum entangled. They share information instantaneously across any distance. No wonder the Ascended can communicate without speaking." Her assistant looked up from another scanner. "Doctor, the neural patterns. They're distributed across the entire body. There's no central brain. They think with their whole being." Sora sat back, overwhelmed. They're not human anymore. They're something entirely new. Meanwhile, in a secure conference room, Minji met with young Minot, one of the Ascended who had volunteered to serve as a liaison. He looked young, maybe 28, with kind eyes that still glowed faintly blue. Unlike Captain Hanuel, his transformation seemed less extreme, more subtle. "Thank you for meeting with me," Minji said. "I need to understand what really happened at the Crucible." Youngman smiled. "I can do better than explain. I can show you." He reached out and touched her hand. Suddenly, Minji's mind was flooded with images and sensations that weren't her own. She saw the eternal dawn approaching a massive structure in space, a ring so large it made planets look like pebbles. She felt the fear of the crew as the structure's gravity pulled them in, unable to escape. She experienced the years that followed. The crew waking from cryosleep in shifts, the discovery that the Crucible was slowly changing them, the pain of transformation, the loss of those who didn't survive, the wonder when they realized what they had become. She felt Youngman's personal memories too. He had been a linguist, excited to catalog the languages of new worlds. When the transformation began, he had been terrified. But as his mind expanded, as he began to share thoughts with others, he found a joy he had never imagined possible. When Youngman released her hand, Minji gasped for breath. That was incredible. "That's how we communicate now," Youngman explained. "Direct transfer of experience and memory. No words can be misunderstood when you share the actual thought." "But you lost your privacy," Minji said. "Your individuality. We can shield our thoughts when we want to, and we're still individuals. We just understand each other completely." Youngman's expression grew serious. "Dr. Kang, you need to convince your leaders that we're telling the truth. The silence is real and it's coming faster than we predicted. How can you be sure? Because we can feel it. The Ascended are connected to quantum space. We can sense disturbances that normal beings cannot." He pulled up a star chart. 3 systems have already gone dark at the galaxy's edge. No signals, no light, nothing. Just empty space where stars used to be. Minji felt cold dread settle in her stomach. "How long do we have?" 3 months, maybe 4. Back in the council chamber, Hanuel Shin appeared via hologram. Her transformed appearance caused several delegates to recoil. She didn't seem offended. "Members of the collective," she began, "I understand your fear. Change is always frightening, but I'm offering you a chance to survive what's coming. The architects left detailed information about the silence and how to fight it." "And what does this fight require?" Taewon asked carefully. "We need to build structures called anchors. They stabilize reality itself, preventing the silence from breaking down matter and energy. We need at least 200 of them, placed at specific points across the galaxy." 200, a delegate exclaimed. "That would require resources from every world in the collective." "Yes," Hanuel agreed, "and time, which is why we need to start immediately." "There's another option," she continued after a pause. "Volunteers from your species could undergo the ascension process. Becoming like us would make construction faster and more efficient. The Ascended need less food, less air, and can work in space without suits." The chamber erupted in angry shouts. "You want to turn us into monsters," someone yelled. "This is exactly what I said, an invasion." Junho Kim stood up. Captain Shin, why should we believe any of this? You could be lying about the silence. This could all be a trick to make us transform ourselves, making us weak for conquest. Hanuel's glowing eyes fixed on him. Security Chief Kim, I'm going to share something with you. All of you. She gestured, and data began flooding the chamber's systems. These are our complete sensor logs from the past month. Every reading, every observation. You'll see the silences approach. You'll see systems dying. Verify it with your own instruments if you don't believe us. Over the next 2 days, scientists from every species worked around the clock to verify the data. Hyun Lee led the analysis team, barely sleeping as he checked and rechecked the numbers. Finally, he stood before the council with his report. It's all true, he said quietly. The silence is real. We tracked it to 3 separate star systems. They're gone. Just gone. And it's spreading. The chamber fell silent. Taewon looked around at his fellow council members. Then we have a decision to make. Do we trust the Ascended and work with them? Or do we try to face this threat alone? A delegate from one of the oldest species in the collective stood. I vote to accept their help. But I also vote that any ascension process must be completely voluntary. No one should be forced to change. Agreed, Taewon said. All in favor? The vote wasn't unanimous. Some species refused to participate, but enough voted yes to begin the work. Hanuel bowed her head. Thank you. We'll start immediately. Every day counts. As the council adjourned, Hyun approached Minji. Dr. Kang, I've been thinking. If we're going to build these anchors, we'll need people who can work faster than normal. I'm going to volunteer for the ascension process. Minji grabbed his arm. Hyun, you saw what it does to people. You might not survive. I know the risks, but if I can help save the galaxy. He smiled at her. It's worth it, isn't it? Minji wanted to argue, but looking at his determined face, she knew she couldn't change his mind. When? Tomorrow. Captain Hanuel says the transformation takes about 3 days. 3 days later, Minji stood outside the transformation chamber aboard the Eternal Dawn. Inside, Hyun lay in a pod filled with glowing liquid. His screams had stopped an hour ago. Now he was just changing. When the chamber finally opened, Hyun stumbled out. His skin now showed faint circuit patterns underneath. His eyes glowed softly. But when he looked at her and smiled, it was still him. Dr. Kang, he said, his voice carrying new harmonics. I can see so much now. The math, the physics, it all makes sense. We're going to do this. We're going to save everyone. Minji hoped he was right, because across the galaxy, the silence was spreading, and time was running out. Captain Yoonji Song stood on the bridge of the Harmony's light, watching the eternal dawn grow larger on her viewscreen. She had commanded warships for 15 years, facing pirates and navigating dangerous space, but nothing had prepared her for this. Maintain distance, she ordered. All weapons ready, but do not target the vessel. We don't want to appear hostile. Beside her, Commander Ji-won Park studied the tactical display with a critical eye. That ship could swallow our entire fleet. If it's hostile, we won't stand a chance. On the research vessel trailing behind them, Dr. Minji Kang pressed her face close to the observation window. The Eternal Dawn was even more impressive up close. Its hull bore the scars of 20,000 years in space. Micrometeorite impacts, radiation scoring, and strange crystalline growths that shouldn't exist in the vacuum of space. Hyun, are you getting any more transmissions? She asked. Hyun Lee worked frantically at his console, fingers flying over the controls. The automated message stopped. But I'm detecting something else. Data streams, thousands of them, all coming from inside the ship. What kind of data? Everything. Navigation logs, medical records, personal journals. It's like the ship is trying to tell us its entire history all at once. Hyun's voice shook slightly. Dr. Kang, some of these files are dated just a few days ago. That was impossible. The ship's crew should have been dead for millennia. Unless something had kept them alive, or something had replaced them. A new voice crackled over the communication channel. It was wrong, layered with harmonics that made it sound like multiple people speaking at once. Collective vessels, this is Captain Hanuel Shin of the Eternal Dawn. We mean no harm. We request permission to dock and share what we have learned, Ji-Wan immediately responded. Captain Shin, this is Commander Ji-Wan Park of the Galactic Collective. We need verification of your identity and information about your ship's status before we can grant any requests. There was a pause. Then, Commander Park, we understand your caution. You may send a boarding team. Our airlocks are open to you. You will find the answers you seek inside. Yunji looked at Ji-Wan. It could be a trap. It could be, Ji-Wan agreed. But we came here for answers. Let's go get them. The boarding team assembled in the shuttle bay. Ji-Wan led 10 security personnel, all armed with energy weapons. Minji insisted on joining them, bringing Hyun and a nervous xenobiologist named Do-Hyun Choi. Do-Hyun specialized in studying alien life forms, though he looked like he might be sick at any moment. Stay close to me, Ji-Wan told Minji. If anything goes wrong, we retreat immediately. The shuttle crossed the empty space between the ships. The Eternal Dawn's airlock opened smoothly, as if it had been used yesterday rather than sitting dormant for thousands of years. The codes Hyun transmitted, ancient human protocols that should have been obsolete, worked perfectly. The interior of the ship was dark. Emergency lighting strips cast a dim blue glow along the corridors. But the gravity worked and the air was breathable. The environmental systems were still running after all this time. This way, came Hanuel's voice through their suit speakers. Follow the lights to the bridge. We are waiting for you. As they walked deeper into the ship, Minji noticed things that made her skin crawl. The walls were covered in handprints, thousands of them, pressed into the metal. They glowed faintly with bioluminescent compounds. Between the prints were messages written in Old Korean and English. We changed, one message read. We adapted, said another. We became more. What does that mean? Do-Hyun whispered. Minji didn't answer. She was too busy looking at the cryopods lining the corridors. Hundreds of them were visible through the windows. All of them were empty. All of them had been opened from the inside. Where are the bodies? Ji-Wan asked quietly. They found the bridge in the center of the ship. It was a vast circular chamber with control stations arranged in concentric rings. At the center sat a command chair. And in that chair sat a figure. It was humanoid in shape but wrong in every detail. Its skin was a mixture of organic flesh and metallic fibers that caught the light like circuit boards. Its eyes glowed with soft blue light. When it stood, it moved with inhuman grace. Welcome, it said. The voice matched the one they had heard over communications. Multiple tones layered together. I am Captain Hanuel Shin, or rather I was. Now I am something more. Ji-Wan's hand moved to her weapon, but she didn't draw it. What happened to you? We evolved. Hanuel gestured around the bridge. As if summoned by the motion, other figures emerged from the shadows. Dozens of them. All transformed. All glowing with that same internal light. All of us. Minji forced herself to step forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. The Eternal Dawn's mission was to reach the Crucible Nebula and establish a colony. Did you make it? We made it, Hanuel confirmed. But we found something there we didn't expect. An ancient structure built by a civilization that came before any current galactic species. They called it the Crucible because it tested those who found it. Tested them how? Do-Hyun asked, his voice barely above a whisper. It offered a choice. Remain as we were and eventually die in the harsh environment, or accept transformation and survive. Hanuel's glowing eyes fixed on each member of the boarding team in turn. We chose survival. The Crucible exposed us to radiation and energy fields that rewrote our DNA. Over decades, we changed. We became stronger, faster, smarter. We learned to interface with our ship, to share thoughts and memories. We became the Ascended. How many of you survived? Minji asked. 180,000, Hanuel replied. The others couldn't adapt. Their bodies rejected the transformation. We carry their memories with us, honor their sacrifice. Hyun had been silent, but now he spoke up. Why did you come back? After 20,000 years, why return now? Hanuel's expression shifted to something that might have been sadness. Because the Crucible showed us something terrible. The civilization that built it, the architects, they left because they discovered a threat. Something they called the Silence. It's coming and it will destroy everything in this galaxy unless we work together to stop it. What is the Silence? Ji-Wan demanded. The end of all things, Hanuel said simply. A wave of entropy that causes reality itself to break down. Stars go cold. Planets dissolve. Life simply ceases to exist. The architects fled into dark space to escape it. They left the crucible as a warning and a gift for any species that came after. Minji felt her legs go weak. How long until it arrives? We thought you had centuries. But our sensors detected the first signs as we approached your space. You have months at best. The boarding team stood in stunned silence. Around them, the ascended humans waited patiently, their glowing eyes reflecting the emergency lights. We can help you, Hanuel continued. We have technology from the architects. Knowledge that could save your civilization. But you must trust us. You must work with us. Jiwan's military training kicked in. We need to report this to the collective immediately. This decision is beyond our authority. We understand, Hanuel said. Take all the time you need. But please, hurry. The silence does not wait for anyone. As the boarding team returned to their shuttle, Minji looked back at the eternal dawn. The ghost ship that had returned from the dark held secrets that could save or doom them all. She just hoped the Galactic Collective would be wise enough to listen. Dr. Minji Kang stood before the massive holographic display in the Grand Archive of Thalos Prime. Behind her, hundreds of alien beings from dozens of different species watched with varying degrees of interest. Some had multiple eyes, others had crystalline bodies that sparkled in the soft light, and a few floated in anti-gravity fields. They had all come to hear her talk about humanity, a species that had been dead for 20,000 years. Humans were an interesting species, Minji said, adjusting her translator device. They appeared suddenly in galactic history with primitive fusion engines. They built a few colonies on nearby planets, and then they simply vanished. We believe their home star collapsed, and they couldn't escape in time. Minji had spent her entire adult life studying human ruins and artifacts. She found their story sad but fascinating. Humans had reached for the stars with such determination, only to disappear after just a few centuries of space travel. Now they existed only in old records and broken machines found on abandoned worlds. A young communications specialist named Hyun Lee sat in the front row, taking notes on his datapad. He was fascinated by ancient human technology, and had helped Minji translate several human databases. His enthusiasm reminded her why she loved her work. What we find most interesting about humans, Minji continued, is that they never gave up. Even when their star was dying, they kept building ships and sending out colony missions. One of their last projects was called the Eternal Dawn, a massive colony ship that suddenly alarms screamed throughout the archive. The holographic display flickered and died. Red warning lights bathed the chamber in crimson. Several aliens jumped to their feet, their various appendages twitching with alarm. Hyun Lee's datapad lit up with urgent messages. His eyes went wide. He jumped from his seat and ran toward the stage. Dr. Kang? You need to see this immediately. Minji felt her hearts, she had two, being from a species called the Kelmar, beating faster. What's happening? A signal, Hyun said breathlessly. From the outer dark. It's using human encryption codes. The room erupted in confused chatter. The outer dark was an empty region of space beyond the civilized galaxy. Nothing lived there. Nothing could live there. Commander Jiwan Park burst into the archive chamber moments later. She was a tall, imposing figure with gray hair and sharp eyes. As the military liaison for the archive, she took security very seriously. Everyone needs to evacuate this building immediately. This is not a drill. What's going on? Minji demanded. Jiwan pulled Minji aside as the crowd began filing toward the exits. The signal. It's real. We've verified it's coming from something physical, something big, and it's moving toward our space at speeds that should be impossible. Show me, Minji said. In the emergency command center beneath the archive, Minji watched as technicians worked frantically at their stations. Thalos, the collective's science director, a being made entirely of living crystal, stood in the center of the room, his facets reflecting light in geometric patterns that indicated deep concern. Play the message, Thalos said, his voice chiming like glass bells. The speakers crackled to life. Through the static came a voice speaking in ancient human language. This is Colony Ship Eternal Dawn requesting docking clearance. 20,000-year mission complete. We are requesting coordinates to Earth. Please respond. The message repeated. Over and over. The same words in the same flat, mechanical tone. Minji felt dizzy. That's impossible. The Eternal Dawn launched 20,000 years ago. Even if it survived, it should still be traveling toward its destination. It couldn't possibly have completed its mission and returned. Yet here we are, said Fleet Admiral Varn, a reptilian creature with scales that shifted from green to red when he was agitated. Currently, they were very red. The question is, what do we do about it? We need to intercept it, Jiwan said firmly. We can't let an unknown vessel, possibly containing ancient weapons or diseases, enter populated space. It's a human ship, Minji protested. They're not a threat. They've been gone for 20,000 years, Jiwan interrupted. We have no idea what happened to them. For all we know, they could be hostile. Or worse, they could be carrying something that killed them and now it's coming here. Thalos's crystal body pulsed with thought. Dr. Kang, you're the expert on human history. What do you think we're dealing with? Minji looked at the display showing the incoming signal. Long-range sensors had finally locked onto the source. The ship was massive, far larger than any colony vessel should have been, and it was moving at speeds that their best science said was impossible. I think, Minji said slowly, that the Eternal Dawn found something out there. Something that changed them. Changed them how? Varn demanded. I don't know. But humans were known for being adaptable. They survived on harsh worlds, rebuilt after catastrophes, and kept pushing into dangerous territory. If they found something that could help them survive, they would have used it. That's not reassuring, Jiwan muttered. We need to send a team, Thalos decided. A research vessel with military escort. Dr. Kang, you'll lead the scientific mission. Commander Park, you'll command the security forces. I want Hyun-Lee on my team, Minji said quickly. He understands human communication systems better than anyone. Thalos agreed. Within hours, a fleet was assembled. 3 military vessels and 1 research ship prepared to jump into hyperspace. They would intercept the Eternal Dawn in deep space, far from any inhabited worlds. As Minji packed her equipment, Hyun approached her. Dr. Kang, do you really think they're still human? After 20,000 years? Minji looked at the young specialist. I think they started as human. What they are now. We'll find out soon enough. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, streaking through folded space toward the rendezvous point. The journey would take 6 days. Minji spent that time reviewing every piece of human history she could find. She read about their wars and their art, their science and their dreams. She studied the Eternal Dawn's original mission logs and crew manifests. 300,000 humans had been aboard that ship when it launched. 300,000 people seeking a new home among the stars. What had happened to them out there in the dark? On the 6th day, the fleet emerged from hyperspace at the calculated intercept point. The view screens lit up with an image that made everyone fall silent. The Eternal Dawn hung in space like a monument to something ancient and terrible. It was 20 kilometers long, its hull covered in strange patterns that seemed to move and shift. Parts of it looked like the human designs Minji knew from her studies. But other sections were completely alien, built according to principles she didn't recognize. It's beautiful, Hyun whispered. It's terrifying, Jiwon corrected. As they watched, the ship's running lights began to activate. Row after row of illumination spreading across its hull like eyes opening after a long sleep. The power readings spiked impossibly high. It knows we're here, the sensor operator reported. It's waking up. Minji stared at the ghost ship that had returned from the dark between stars. Whatever answers it held, whatever secrets it carried, they were about to discover them. The Eternal Dawn was home. And nothing would ever be the same again.